Hello, Mr. Reyna. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Got my peach, got my cards,
Nice.
got my jacket.
Alright, so I got a couple questions for you.
Alright.
So I just wanted to know what your general approach for teaching students to think like a statistician. How do you go about doing that?
That is a good question, sir. Thinking like a statistician is learning how to be really lazy and have bad abbreviations. No, I'm just kidding. I honestly just like giving real-world data sets because I should just look at you instead of the camera. Real-world data sets because ultimately stats is not. It's not as academic as other math subjects. It's more just, you just have these data sets, real world data, and you just have to crunch the numbers. Also making sure that students, know how to use the technology, because that's just kind of the standard how statisticians do it.
So how do you reinforce sort of conceptual thinking in your class, with regards to like linear regression lines and stuff like that?
It's a good question. I try to make as many connections as I can to the classes before it. With stats, it is honestly very difficult to make true conceptual understanding of some topics because the underlying math is so hard. Like in, let's say, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, you're still only doing things that are, well, actually, I should say Math 1, Math 2, but they're pretty, they're still pretty basic and you can really get a concrete, good conceptual understanding of them. But once you get to stats, things like standard error, margin of error, these types of topics are really abstract and super hard to grasp onto. That being said, when I try to, whenever I can, like the M&M or Reese's Pieces type activities with sampling or with, things like that, standard error. But it is really, really difficult to get to genuinely have discovery-based learning in a lot of the topics. It's very hard.
Cool. So how do you accommodate different types of learner? For instance, I'm a kinesthetic learner, and Claudio's a visual learner. So,
exactly.
How do you incorporate that into your classroom?
Yeah, this is a good question. So, like I said, with those activities, I'd say that's pretty much the only kinesthetic thing we do, and that's only, from time to time. There's only so many activities with that. Visuals, try to show videos, or hopefully some animated GIF/GIFs. Those are good for visuals. There are a lot of good visuals for statistics, and then definitely, working a lot with, it's interesting with stats, you're working so much with a calculator, that almost adds into the experience of it. There's so much that you actually have to do with your hands. It's not as much pen to paper. There's a lot of crunching on the calculator and then writing one thing down, and then crunching on the calculator, writing one thing down. But yeah, I just try to make sure there's always going to be a ton of visual, auditory learning in any classroom, obviously. But then in terms of kinesthetic and adding videos in for more visual. What's up, Mickey? Okay.
So could you give some general advice on improving study habits?
Okay, let me think about this. I definitely think, for me, making flashcards is helpful, digital, or writing if you really like writing. But yeah, that's really helpful, especially in almost any class. Just being able to get the main topics through flashcards. I do think that doing the reading in an organized fashion is essential. It's super easy in college, especially to waste time just reading something for 3 hours and then the next day being like, I read, not even remembering anything. So it's better to read, honestly, even if you couldn't read all of it, if you could read some of it in an organized way while you're taking some sort of notes, Cornell notes, or however you want it, annotations, whatever, that's much better than just reading aimlessly.
So, Mr. Rand, what's one thing you hope students remember in the future after they leave your stats class?
Stat of the day, no matter what, even reputable studies can lie to you in a number of ways that are not things as simple as just they falsified the study. Just little subtle things they change the confidence interval without telling you, or they, change the alpha value. Just little things, subtle things behind the scenes can be done to manipulate statistics. And I also want people to remember this. Don't trust one poll. Trusting overall an aggregate of all the polls that are happening is a good thing, but just freaking out every time a poll is released is not a good practice because easily one poll can be skewed or an outlier. Steve Holt.
Thank you.
Welcome.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Have a good year.
Woo-hoo.